Hello guys, Freaky Force 9 here. Sorry for the little quality you guys we got going on here, but honestly this is the best I can do for you guys. Cause once again it is time to get serious. Uh as everybody will know, some time ago, a couple weeks back, the Parkland school shooting took place down in Florida. May those 17 kids who tragically passed away, may they rest in peace. And may the guy who committed the acts basically burn in hell, because that's where he's going to go to, because that's what jail is. It's literally hell. So he's going to hell before he goes to hell. But I'm not here to talk about that. We already know the outcome. We already know what's going on with that. But there's one thing that I was waiting for somebody to say, because it is basically a tradition when school shootings take place. Earlier tonight on the news, and I did read an article about this some time ago, but I never got around to making this video. But on the news, on the CBS Evening News, I believe it was. It was one of those news, but I don't remember what channel it was. But on the news, they was talking about how the question of, does video game violence cause real life violence? And I have a firm belief on this whole situation of video game violence causing real life violence. I am a big supporter of those that say it does not. And I have tackled this subject twice, and for good reason. Well, I have a couple of reasons, so I'm just going to lay down the law for you guys, okay? The first thing about video game violence, not causing real life violence, is basically because you can literally look up on the website, on Google video game violence causing real life violence, and there's like probably they probably have so many articles on Google basically talking how it doesn't do it, that it would basically be there's my PlayStation, be big enough to probably envelop the earth whole a good amount of times over. I can't see video game violence, the whole thing started all the way. See, in case you got the little kids out here trying to figure out how the ESRB got started, I'll be a little bit of a history teacher right now. The ESRB came to fruition all the way back to 1992, around the time when Mortal Kombat, as well as some other violent games came out. Games like Night Trap, Mortal Kombat, like I just said, amongst a couple other games, was being targeted for this. And the big issue was that to parents and to state officials, that it would cause real life violence. They were concerned about what kids play. Now, I understand their concerns. Don't get me wrong. I do understand why they would go like that, and I respect their decision. I respect their opinions on this. Don't get me wrong. But in my personal opinion, here's reason number 2. Let me give you an example of my childhood. When I was a kid, when I was 5 years old, I started playing Grand Theft Auto 3 because there was a relative on my father's side that we would visit every so often, and their kids had 2 Grand Theft Auto games, Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now, for a 5-year-old, you would probably be thinking of my wild imagination. I would potentially have a thought, at least one thought, of doing these acts. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you are sadly mistaken. See, unlike some kids, I actually knew that video games were fake because and you ask any adult, and they would say to you that 9 out of 10 chances, unless it is the trustworthy news, not like Fox News, but literal trustworthy news, then pretty much 9 out of 10 chances a TV show is fake. Mainly because most of the time it's because of what you see on the screen that makes it look so fake. Same goes with video games. You got games like Dead Space, Mortal Kombat, like I said. You got like those type of games. They're obviously fake because they're fantasy type. They're like fantasy, so to speak, because they got moves that you would not really be able to do in real life. But then you got games like Grand Theft Auto 5 where it is real life like, because it's based on an actual real life city. In all the Grand Theft Auto games, all the cities the series is taking place in are based on real cities. But there's a big difference between all the other stuff with Grand Theft Auto 5. Like a big example would be how in Grand Theft Auto 5, depending on your wanted level, and how long you've lasted, how long they've tried to look for you when you've escaped out of their sight somehow. Then after you escaped out of their sight after a certain time, then they would give up their search. In real life, though, cops are going to be sure they find you before they go home that night and say, "Hi, honey, how was your day?" You know, that's just how it is. That's how real life works. But let me tell you guys the biggest reason behind video game violence and cause of real life violence. The big issue I have with this statement is very simple. In my book, it is not because of the violence in the video game that is causing people to commit violent acts. It is more on the part of the person's mindset. Because some people, even though they're playing a game, some people will have a tendency to believe that what they're playing is real because of depending on how realistic the game looks. But there are those out there that do play games, but do have the common sense to know that the games that they play is fake. Like, no joke, it's the way it is. But that's the phone. But the reason why I go off on people all the time whenever they play violent video games for real life violence, and some may call me biased because I'm a video gamer, but it's a no-brainer that the reason why people commit these acts is because what they think is literally all in their head. They're taking ideas from a video game and trying to make it look and feel real in their head. But it's not real. If you guys can get my drift, if you guys don't understand what I'm saying, basically what I'm saying is video game violence does not cause real life violence. It's mainly in the mindset. It's in the mindset of the video game, of the person playing the game. That's my point when it comes to the argument against video game violence causing real life violence. Because I know some people will just call me wrong, and I'm gonna hear from, and if there are any parents out there, I'm probably gonna hear from them first. But it's the cold hard truth. You don't. Dude, I've played I don't know how many M-rated games in my lifetime. No matter what system I was playing it on, whether it was my own system or someone else's, I can't tell you how many times I played an M-rated game and never had the thought of thinking, well, I could do this in real life. I mean, hey, they do it in the game, I can do it in real life. I have not once ever thought of that, period. Never. But there are kids out there that will do stuff. But, see, here's the difference between kids and adults. With kids, they have a literal wild imagination. So, it is expected for them to try to do what they see in the video game. But in that sense, it is not the fault of the child, it's the fault of the parent. Because parents, nowadays, have the parents always have to have the responsibilities of when they tell their children, you cannot watch this or you cannot play that because you're not old enough. It is up to the parent to tell their kids that. It is not the kid's fault for thinking these acts. It's mainly because of the parents in that regard. Because children, as I just said, they have a wild imagination. That's the closest thing that there is to it. But when it comes to adults, they're mature enough to know that these games are not real. And if they don't think it's fake, then they have something in the head. They must have been fucked in the head or something. Because there is no fucking way ever that was not the case. That was not the case. Because it doesn't add up to anything at all. You see, way back when, there's actually a game that I just thought of. I don't remember the name of it, but there was a game that had a violent act in the game, and it was by way of decapitating your opponent. But the funny part is that game did not get heat from the parents because of the violence. The game literally got heat just because of what the fuck was on the cover. That was then. Nowadays, you got parents going off on anything that basically involves violence in games. They go off on it all the time, and that's the best way they can blame what happens to their kids. And when their kids do something bad, in any way, no matter what it was, if it was something that's against the law, parents always find a way to blame the violence on video games. It's just like way back when comic books were a new thing. Parents decided, well, it's a new thing, so we're just going to ruin the fun and just blame the violent acts that kids do on the comic books. I don't know about TV shows, but video games followed suit with that. It's getting to the point where it feels like, in some cases, parents are just finding reason to blame what happens to what their kids did or what happened to their kids to violent video games. It needs to stop. We are in the year 2018, and there have been a shitload of articles that goes way back when that has basically said, long story short, violent video games do not cause real-life violence. It was mainly on the mindset of the player, and a number of articles could attest to this, what I just said, about the mindset business. That is the cold, hard truth. It's about time. Parents, stop blaming violent video games for what happened to their kids, and start thinking about what they did to the child. Because sometimes kids will do something because of will do certain violent acts because of what their parents did. And that's another thing. It seems like parents, I'm not saying this is 100% legit, but it seems like nowadays parents are just basically, if they feel like they're not in the wrong, they will blame what happened to video games, or anything for that matter. And, like I said, if you think video game violence causes real life violence, I'd like to hear your standpoint, because as far as I'm concerned, my standpoint is video game violence does not cause real life violence. Instead, the worst it can do is basically lead to screwing up with your mindset, or basically brainwashing you into playing the games and not doing your schoolwork. Like it's done like that, and that last bit I just said has happened to me. I've basically been, when I was in school, I would basically play the fuck out of my PlayStation, out of my Nintendo, out of my Nintendo Game Boy, my GameCube. Whenever I was home, I would play the fuck out of my systems, out of my gaming consoles, and I would not give a second, and I wouldn't give a second thought about playing my, doing my homework. And that's my fault. I learned my mistakes, you know? And kids need to understand that, now parents, the best thing I can recommend you to do is take your kids and tell your kids straight up that what you see, what those video games that you play are not real. As soon as, you may have to probably say it numerous times, but eventually they will get the memo and hopefully they won't commit any violent acts. But that's my personal opinion. It may still lead them to doing violent acts, who knows? It's just a matter of, if you feel like you should tell your kids what I just said about video games being fake, then that is up to you guys. But I believe that is something every parent should do to kids. Tell to any avid gamer who's a kid or a teenager. Tell them, if they somehow didn't know, that video games are fictional. They are not real. The stories are fictional, and if I just said that twice. But basically, long story short, the video games are fictional. All the characters who look or who have the same name as somebody, exact same name as somebody else, or looks exactly like somebody else, or both, then 9 out of 10 chances it is just mere coincidence that it took place. But yeah, cutting the video. But yeah, this closing argument. In my personal opinion, long story short, video game violence does not cause real life violence, because number one, the worst thing it can do is mess with your mindset, and number two, because parents should have no problem monitoring what their children plays on the game console. It is up to the parent to figure out what to do with that. But for right now, I know for a damn fact that video game violence being blamed for all kinds of shit, no matter how big or how stupid it is, no matter how full of crap it is or how fucking ridiculous it is. I know for a damn fact that it's still going to be a time where violent video games will be called into action, but hopefully there will be a time where violent video games is finally not being blamed on, where nothing gets blamed on for real life violence, and it's only just because of the person's mindset. Until we live in that world, I'm basically going to keep my belief and say that video game violence does not cause real life violence. Period. And with that being said, I'm going to end it off here, guys. I hope you guys, even though I said the same thing, said multiple things, couple of things multiple times, I hope you guys understand the message. If not, then like always, I will delete this video and put up another video that will put it in more perspective with what I was trying to say. Okay? So, but for right now, I'm going to end it off here. Hope you guys enjoyed my views on the matter. If you did, hit the like button, add it to your favorites. Well, hit the like button, really. Just mainly hit the like button. And if you have your own take on this matter, comment down in the description down below. All opinions are welcome, as long as you're not being a fucking dick, okay? I'm just pointing that out right now. Don't be a dick. If you feel your opinion literally does matter. Okay, so I'm gonna end it off. Hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, guys, this is Freaking Force 9 signing off. Shit. Freaking Force 9 signing off.